Welcome back, everybody, to another guest episode here on the Energy of the Untamed Heart podcast. I am beyond excited today to bring a guest interview with Chris Lombard, who I met a few months ago at a horsemanship clinic locally at a local animal sanctuary that's run by a friend of mine. And what I immediately connected to and learned about myself, my horse, and this entire energy of being united as one and utilizing the essence of the trueness of the oneness through love between yourself and your horse and yourself was really taken to a whole new level with Chris. So I'm really excited to talk about horses, life, energy, quality, the path
Mm.
that we're on. I think we're just going to talk a little bit about everything. And I can't wait to share this with you. Chris has had quite a journey in his lifetime to bring him to where he is now and to experience his evolution through his horsemanship, through his writings, through his books, and to then see it firsthand. I'm super humbled. So, with no further ado, Chris, welcome. Welcome. We're going to get chatting.
Thank you, Meow. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you to everybody that'll be listening along with us.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So, I will be very transparent and say I have been on this journey, not just for myself, but for my horses for, I would consider it a fairly long time. Like you, I came to horses as an adult. So I wasn't one of those kids like, mommy, I want a pony. And with the luxury of taking lessons and doing all the things that many young kids get to do, or well, not so much now with the cost of things, but back in the day, that was pretty common. That wasn't an opportunity for me. So I came into horses in my mid 30s, been in horses for about 3+ decades. So my journey has taken a lot of twists and turns because I didn't know what I didn't know until I did. And that in itself has been an eye opener for me, where I went from the traditional, oh, I just want to learn to ride, not understanding there was so much more to this than equipment and an animal and running circles and all the things, to
Mm.
where I have evolved to now, which is it's not really important to me if I actually get in the saddle and go for the ride. It's nice, but it's not really critical. What I really am drawn to with my experience with horses is the reflection of a soul to a soul, and how do we foster that. And
Mhm.
reading your books, I see that you took a parallel journey to start towards the same destination. And I'm nowhere near that destination, but it's fascinating to me that there are many paths that lead to the same ocean. And I'd be
Mhm.
really intrigued to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, often our journey with horses, boy, it often starts off with a completely different thought or idea or intention or story as to the reason we're getting into it, doesn't it? Uh,
Mm,
I don't think I've ever met a person who started off saying, yeah, I'd like to get into a journey in life that will challenge me and test me and propel me deeply in every way into ways that challenge me emotionally, mentally, physically, will downright scare me, will be overwhelming both mentally, emotionally, and financially, and will leave me feeling lost and in the dark in many, many ways. and that,
right? Sign
I mean,
me up. I can't
right,
wait for that.
exactly.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, horses scare us. Obviously, they can scare us physically. They're just so much bigger. And then there's the emotional side of it. Whatever our fears are, they'll working with horses will find them. All just the general life fears that we can have as far as time, doing things right, getting the most out of life, financial worries, all of these things will come up in that journey. So they become an excellent reflection of where we're at and where we're coming from at our deepest core. And so when I think of that initial time that a person is brought into connection with horses, that's a very holy time, very sacred time. And it's both sometimes very explainable, such as like we grew up on a farm or we have friends with horses or our family has horses. or we have an interest in them when we're young, or it could be very mysterious and unexplainable, like you just one day run into somebody who has horses at a very meaningful time in your life, at an age where they were the last thing you thought you were looking for. And that's more my journey right there, the latter. I was 26 years old and at a very challenging time in my life. I thought it was the most challenging time of my life that I'd ever gone through. And I went over to somebody's farm where my girlfriend was house sitting at the time. And my intention was going there to, I thought, to save the relationship and to save everything good in my life at that time. And horses, if you had said that night when I was driving over there, yeah, Chris, there's this horse I'd love for you to meet, I'd be like, horses? That's the farthest thing from my mind. But yet, when we got there and we were in the middle of the conversation where she was essentially breaking up with me and explaining to me why, and I thought that was the worst thing that could be happening in my life at that time. In the middle of that conversation, she said, "Oh, I have to go feed the horses that I'm taking care of here while I'm house sitting." And I was like, "Oh, I just wanted to keep talking." She said, "Oh, you can come if you'd like." And I was like, "Sure, sure, I'll follow you out to the barn." And when we walked into the barn and I saw the horses, flip switched right then and there. And it was the look of them, the smell of them, the sound that they made while they were eating. And I literally forgot about everything that was going on, all of the challenges, all of the hardships, all of the worries, all of the anxieties. It's very strange, and I probably couldn't have explained it then, but I can now. In that, in the face of love and connection, those things just don't have room. They don't have room to exist and to hold sway over us the way they do when we're not so much in that space. And so when I got around them and just was feeling their energy and feeling the two horses and just who they were being, my girlfriend said, "Oh, okay, we can head back to the house now." And I was like, "Huh, what? Who?" I forgot everything. And then suddenly I was, whoop, brought right back to it. And I was like, "Oh yeah, right. Let's head back to the farmhouse." And so certainly, my mind went right back to the relationship and our talk. And in those days after, yeah, I was in a depressive state, and there's a lot of other things that are happening at that time. Just all these things that I thought were the worst things possible. The job I had was I worked at a restaurant. I was a bar manager. I thought it was just this most wonderful job for me. Well, that was closing down. The money I'd saved up, that pretty much quickly was gone. My mom, who was my only close family at that time, started having health issues, and through it all, the vision of those horses just kept popping up in my head until finally, I said, "All right, I need to go be around them." And then after taking just some of the basic lessons for 4 or 5 times, I realized the flip side of everything that was going on. Once my mom was in the clear health wise, and I realized I had nothing really left tying me to where I was, I realized the freedom that gave me to follow that feeling in my heart that I was experiencing those horses. And it's funny how we can view things in our life as the hardest time, but then just a switch of our perception. Once it's more aligned with our heart, and once we let go of the who, what, why, when, where, how, if things have to be, we suddenly see all the opportunity that is within every moment, even the challenges. And that was the beginning of following my connection to horses, which has now led me 23 years later to where I am at now with that connection.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
phenomenal because my journey here is a little bit different, not quite as romanticized as the way I read it through. And I went out west and then I got to work on a ranch and then I got to this and that. And I'm thinking, wow, that's still on my bucket list, but okay. Mine occurred because I was at the rock bottom of a place within myself after spending many years doing what I thought was going to bring me the success and the external validation of look at all the things I've done, the accolades, all the things, and I should be sitting pretty. And I was sitting miserable to
Mm.
the point where I was pretty tired and burnt out. I took myself on a little 3-day vacation to a newly opened spot in Arizona. And one of the programs offered at this destination was time to spend with a horse between being in a round pen and watching them move and grooming. So for a girl who didn't get the opportunity to get her horse fix as a kid, I was like, holy moly, this is just phenomenal. Well, the moment that I had that experience, it was literally like electricity running through my body. I'm like, whoa, this is different than anything else
Mm.
I've connected with ever. And it was sort of the thing that dug me out of the bottom of the pit. You always think to yourself, like, I can't get any lower. And then you find out there's a little lower you can go. It's so funny, and that old adage of like, when you're in the bottom, stop digging, just stop digging. Oh my God. So this was a long, long time ago, but I came back from that little 3-day trip with a very firm conviction that I needed a horse. Not I needed horse lessons. I needed a horse.
All
Okay.
right.
I knew nothing. I didn't know how to feed him. I didn't know how to brush him. I didn't know how to ride him. I didn't know how to lead them. Like I knew nothing, literally nothing. All I knew is that the peace and the sense of inner quietness that I felt in my being when I was in the presence of was I'm gonna say it. It was like a drug for me. I was like, "I can't get enough of this. Like, I simply
Mhm.
cannot get enough of this."
Yeah.
So that's how the whole journey started, and it wouldn't have started had I not been completely rock bottom in the rest of my life. Relationship-wise, work-wise, finances, you name it, the whole shebang. So, sometimes what seems like a shitstorm turns out to be like the gift of the gods to you or to me or
Yeah.
to whomever.
Yeah.
And again, I think you're right. If we can take a step back and stop leaning into, oh, boohoo, poor me, look, my life stinks, I'm so depressed, everything sucks, and say, wow, what can I learn from this? What is here for me? And I'm hearing either the little voice or the nudge, or I keep seeing the quote unquote synchronicities, which is a whole nother story because I don't really believe in coincidences. I kind of feel like it's all sort of planned out. But anyway, if you've got the druthers to follow that itch, to follow that thing, then and you're open and you're willing to be open and not judge it, just go with it, flow with it,
Yeah.
then the myriad of opportunity of what can you learn about yourself and what can you learn about your equine companions and what they're teaching you, telling you, and asking of you opens up tremendously. And I
Mm.
learned it the hard way. I learned it the hard way because I didn't know not to learn it the hard way. Everything else I learned in life was going the hard way. I was like, yeah, I'm used to hard. Okay, I can do this. And, I took it on as a challenge. Like, okay, I can do this. I'm a little bit beat up in my mid 30s, but what the heck? I can learn to ride. I can learn to do all the things. And so I threw myself whole hog in, probably like you did.
Mm.
And after a lot of learning, I had to unlearn a lot. And I think that is also a really interesting piece to the puzzle of life is you spend a lot of time learning and then you spend a lot of time unlearning
Yeah.
because it isn't really the core of the thing we're here to do. So I find that fascinating in every day. And I'm really blessed. I'm able to have horses on my property now, many, many years later. And each one kind of hasn't exactly been my choice. They've sort of just wound up with me for a lot of different reasons. And I used to wonder, like, oh, I'm just picking up somebody's throwaway, whatever. And what I really see now is, oh no, this is very specific. I've been given the opportunity to spend time with this particular horse, and this is why. This is the lesson they're here to teach me. And you said something, I don't know if it was this week or last week, you made a post on social media about your current horse that you have and how your previous horse literally had prepared you for what you're currently experiencing with your current horse. And I would
Mm.
love if you would just take a couple minutes and share kind of what you mean by that. I know what you mean by that, but what you mean by that and how has it deepened your level of awareness of your journey for yourself and for your horse.
Yeah. You mentioned the idea of having to unlearn, and I have so much compassion for all of us in the world right now through the major shifts that are happening because it's not so much that it feels like we're having to learn and discover and create so much as it is we're unlearning and peeling back layers and letting go and surrendering. And there's some great work there of having to let go of in order to create from a new and very pure and innocent place rather than just hopefully being able to create from that new and innocent and pure place to begin with. You know, I'm 50 years old, and so I have different friends that have been raising children now, and I've seen them in their younger years, and I see them speaking in certain ways where they're speaking with an emotional intelligence at a young age. They're speaking about heart and understanding what it means when we speak of following a heart. They're understanding how to listen and repeat back what was said to them and say, did I hear that correctly? And these are, 6, 7-year-old kids saying, this is what I
Yeah.
heard. This is what I heard you say. Did I hear that correctly? And,
Yeah.
and, and of course, when somebody repeats back what you said in a way that you're like, yes, yes, that's what I was trying to get, you feel really understood and empowered. And then you just want to listen and do the same for them. And so as I see these youngsters starting that way, I'm like, wow, that when I was in high school, men were not telling each other that they loved each other. And yet I'm seeing
No.
at my friend's nonprofit that works with teenage youth, I'm seeing these guys when they say goodbye, they're like hugging each other, right? Love you, man. Love you, brother. All right, see you. And I'm like, right
Right.
on, because that was not going on, when I was growing up in
No.
the 80s. And so I think of a lot of the people that are going through a lot of the times and the shiftings now across the world, across the land. We're doing some hard and holy work. And when I say holy, it's stuff where we're making amends with the past and understanding it, having compassion for it, and also letting it go and trying to create from a new connected place, both within and also within all and everything and everyone around us, whether it be human or animal or nature and all of that. So it's an exciting time. It's a beautiful time, and but it's also a time of much work, I think, and it will go down. I think many years from now, centuries from now, I think humanity will look back on this time and say, "Whoa, those were some people that did some big work for us." They were doing some big work, those people back then, and we appreciated it so much. And so when I think about the world of horses now, I think of, gosh, wow, the shift that's changed just in the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's theorized, and I agree that it is the biggest shift in horsemanship that's happened since the beginning of domestication around 6,000 years ago, where humans and horses first came together. They say the first big shift really would have been around the time of the Greeks, Xenophon, and those people, where they said, hey, instead of just kind of grabbing these horses and muscling through it, maybe we should practice this. Maybe we should have schools. Maybe we should do what's called as training and have organized ways. And of course, the Greeks then were able to organize their armies and work together and practice and have formations and have moves, which became modern day dressage. And so that then gave them this massive advantage over people that were just on horseback running wild and just running at them on the other side. So it's the first organized style of riding. And then roughly though, from what we understand, it seems like horsemanship kind of stayed the same for the next, 4,000 years after the Greeks, just a little over 2,000 years ago. And we grew in it, yes, but it was very slowly. Change happened slowly through the centuries, and it was mostly just in certain pockets where horsemanship started to develop, and all of that. But then in the late 20th century, when the world became a lot more closer, through the internet and other things, and really mainly when horsemanship had the biggest effect on it, where horses took a backseat to modern machinery. The engine was invented, and so horses were no longer our number one machine for farming, for travel, for pulling, and for war. And in most first and second world countries, they're now kind of developing into that place of the pet more. When we get into horses now, it's from choice. It's from something that we want to have more as what people would call a hobby or a pastime or a relationship or a heart calling. It's not survival, even though that way of life still is out there in the world. But for most of us here now, it's more of a heart calling that calls us to horses. And so when I think of my horse Rocky, who I met just a couple years after that story that I told of when I first met horses, I met him as a little foal, 5 months old in the year of 2003. That was young Chris, who was very pure and innocent in his love for horses, but had to learn a real lot as far as the train. I'd never trained a foal before, and I was just up in the beginning as a trainer. And it was very much all about what I could get a horse to do. My love was there, my connection was there, but it was still, I'm going to say the word that pops to my mind, performance based. And of course, it was very much attached to who I was at the time in my mid late 20s there, where with horses, I found something where I felt where I belonged. And people liked me and thought I was worth something for what I could do with horses and how I could help them with horses. So it gave me identity. It gave me a purpose. It gave me reason to feel like I had self-worth. And of course, what happens with that? A lot of attachment, a lot of heavy attachment. And what comes with it is a filling in of all those reasons why I might feel not enough in the first place, why might not be so sufficient in my self-love in the first place. And so horses can do a great job of covering that for us. We can really attach our self-worth, like with many other things in the world, like with everything in the world, but especially with horses, because there's such a romanticized and well-storied history of people, men and women and horses. And it's just plastered all over every movie and book and video. And if you think you can go and have this relationship with a horse and they move with you on the ground and come to you when you whistle or allow you to ride them and you can move with them in such a way, boy, does that make us feel good about ourselves.
Of course it does.
So young Chris had a lot to learn there. And he was learning the ways of horses that were really largely what we'd call pressure and release based, that you create a pressure, a mental and physically perceived pressure that the horse feels, and that they then have to search for an answer in their movement as to how to relieve that pressure. And that was really at the time and still is like the major form of horsemanship in the world. However gently and softly it's done, the old saying that was very, very strong back then, and there was much reason for this saying. It really helped things grow. It really helped bridge us in our learning was you apply a pressure as soft as possible, growing to as firm as necessary, and release it at the slightest try. And it was huge at the time that people learned
Yeah.
that. Because back at the time, people were just using big pressure right off the bat. And so that was a huge step right there when we said, hey, start softly and grow slowly in the pressure. And the horse doesn't have to get it right off. You just have to release at the slightest try that they get it. This was groundbreaking. And so I
Yeah.
was very much in that style of work and training. And through the years, as Rocky and I grew and through our 21 years together, it started to become something different. I started to see that everything that we'd like to have a horse learn from us and in aid of following our guidance and in helping them to follow our guidance, everything started to shift as far as what's their experience in this and why am I really needing a horse to do anything for me? What's my real motivation? What's my real intention? What's the real need there? How does this serve them? Does it? And can it? This work with us. So it started to become a journey more deeply within. And Rocky, through his 21 years, was with me through all of these reincarnations of myself, all of these letting goes of an old version of me and stepping into a new version of me. And so in these last years with him, he just passed away this spring. It became something where it was no longer able to survive within me, that it was just going to be him doing things for me for my own needs. It became a world where I thought working with horses could be something that can serve them just as much as us from the inside out. that they can enjoy the partnership, the connection, and all the stuff we do together, whether it be on the ground or riding, that they could enjoy, and more than that, seek and want to do with us just as much as we'd want to do with them. And with that, what became obsolete was the idea of no healthy, loving relationship is pressure-based. It's certainly not physically pressure-based, where if I want to get somebody to go to the movies with me, I create a physical pressure towards them, however soft as possible. And when they say, okay, I'll go to the movies with you, then I release the pressure, because they're not making that from that place that I just spoke about. They're making it from a place of wanting the pressure to go away. And so when I take them to the movies with me, all I have is their body with me, when inside their mind, their emotions, their being, their soul, their heart, it's somewhere else. It's somewhere else. And I'd venture to say that that's really the main issue with anything that's not going well with our horses across the world. It's because we have their body with us, but their mind and body, their mind and soul, their insides, with their emotions and thoughts and choices, want to be somewhere else. But if they truly want to be there and they feel safe and they enjoy the feeling with us, like it even, and are seeking it and get something out of it as much as we do, just as much as we do, then the body comes with that every time. If the horse is with you from the inside out, the body is always with you. And more than that, it takes the shape of beauty, it takes the shape of something beautiful. And so that's where Rocky and I really got to in those last couple years, where it just turned into an energy-based sort of communication, a mutual communication based on choice, complete consent. And if I had to communicate or ask anything, it was from energy. And energy can rise and lower, but it doesn't have to go act. Energy can communicate, but it doesn't have to threaten. Energy can be alive. It can be soft. It can also be firm. It can be asking, or it can be telling, and all of these things, but it does not have to be physically threatening in any way, and nor does it have to create an uneasiness and a feeling of lack of safety within. Energy can take the shape of the heart and the soul, and the body will then take the shape of that. And just as I would not physically threaten, even in the lightest way, I would not swing a rope at a human. So why would I think I could swing a rope at a horse? The only answer would be is that I think that they are lesser in some way, and they can understand me in a lesser way in some way. But Rocky helped me to see that that's not true. Rocky helped me to see that horses are different, yes, in many ways, mentally and physically, but in their heart and soul, there's an equality there that is shared with every being on the planet, an equality of life. And so when I come from that place, when I view it as a communication with a horse between our heart and souls, then there's a safety in that equality, in how we're seen, in how neither one of us is lesser or more than the other. Differences, yes, beautiful differences, but not better or lesser in those differences. That when a being is recognized in that way, that there's a mutual communication that is just as clear as with any human that can take place. And so when I met Tally, a 7-year-old Andalusian mare that I've known since the spring, Tally doesn't understand pressure. And more than that, she has had what we'd call a really hard life. She's had just been all over the place in many different ways. And it's as hard as it gets. She was one step away from slaughter until an organization called Horse Angels stepped in. And then beyond that, an organization called the Maine State Society for the Protection of Animals stepped in, which I feel we're so lucky to have in the Northeast. They do amazing work in what I call the 4 big ways. 1, care of horses. 2, rehab of horses, mentally, physically, emotionally, in all ways. 3, finding the proper homes for those horses if people are called to connect with one of those horses. And then 4, they have great community outreach. And so through those 2 organizations, Tally got a second chance, and that's when we met. And I've never met a horse like her. And I know we can say that, but I don't think I've ever said that.
Right?
Rocky was the horse I've been the closest with in life, but I've met other horses like him. I'll meet horses that are unique and all that, but I'll say, oh, but this horse is like that horse I met 5 years ago.
Right.
Tally is like, I don't know how I would describe her. She's almost not a horse, even. She doesn't understand pressure. She doesn't understand. If all of a sudden things aren't making sense and she's scared, she almost doesn't understand why she's scared. If I try to work with her in any sort of traditional way, even the gentle ways of working with horses, it doesn't make sense to her. It's like the only way that makes sense to her is through the heart. And so if I had met her even 18 months ago, I think it would not have gone well. I would have crashed against her and not known why. And I would have probably thought, I just got to keep doing this. It's one of these days we're not going to crash. But every time I even remotely slip into something that is not heart-based and energy-based and equal communication within the soul realm based, she doesn't understand it. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I guess I'm just going to have to hold myself fast to this new way of being. And I can't, she's forgiving when I slip back to it. But I'm like, okay, it feels like where Rocky and I left off, I have to immediately just keep following that trajectory. And she's holding me to it. This new relationship that I found my way into is holding me to it, and I'm all in, and it's taken a lot of work. And it's just saying, okay, Chris, you're ready to be steady in this place now. You're ready to be here and be grounded in it and to not slip back. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's go. And let's see where it leads.
And what I think is really beautiful in this description that you're sharing with us is we're not ready for what we're not, I gotta think how I want to say this. We're not ready for the thing that we're ready for until we're ready for it.
Yeah.
Meaning, you may have in your mind had this idea of, and I'm going to work soul to soul from a heart-based place with these equine companions through my life. But there were pieces of your unraveling that needed to come through in order for you to work through the lessons up to this particular point where you're now ready for that up level of heart communication through this particular mare. And you're absolutely right. I think had you had the interaction with her at a different point in your chronological life, it definitely would not have worked. And I see this progression even for myself, and I'm probably a little bit more rigid than you are. It's harder for me to let go of things sometimes. It's that kind of high achiever attitude I have, like, oh, I have to learn everything about everything. And sometimes that desire to learn gets a little bit wrapped up in the wrong gift wrap because you lose sight of why are you doing this? Why are you what's the end point here? Like, are you going to feel any better about yourself because you contorted the horse in like a pretzel by bending this and bending that and requesting it in this way and that way? And there's a disconnect for me when I function in that way. And I will say, do I? Yeah, because that's what I learned too. I went through the phase of let me take all the different horsemanship teachings, books, clinics, movies, well, whatever, anything. I mean, I was like a sponge, like, teach me, teach me. I want to learn whatever it is. But you only learn what you know you can learn because you have to actually be willing to seek outside the box to learn that next thing. And I will say, with all transparency, you were one of the few, shall we say, out there in the public individuals working with equines and their handlers, owners, whomever, to really bring this nuance of horsemanship through. There are a lot of people who teach things like, hey, we're going to teach you harmony. Okay, well, then you question, how are they teaching you harmony? Oh, they're teaching you harmony because, when your horse does this and you release the ask or you release the whatever, now you guys are in harmony. But that's not true harmony. Your
Mm.
true harmony is when two hearts are holding a conversation without anything else in between there. There's no invisible connection string of tug and pull and push and shove. It's truly a soul to soul communication. And I think that's not it. It sounds really great to have this conversation here between us, but then you go to a clinic, let's say, with, I don't know, 20 people, let's say, and the difficulty that I could perceive in how does one translate this information to applicability. It's all great when someone's there for a day or two, but then you kind of go, what happens when they go home? Like, are they going to carry this through to home
Mm.
or no? And part of the thing that I'm very curious about, and I'm not sure how to ask the question, but I'm going to try. I For the experience that I had at the clinic session that I went to with you and one of my horses, I absolutely, shall I just say, okay, I got it. I'm like, okay, I got it. I get that. But that still does not mean when I come home to do some of the things that I choose to do I not fall back to that default? Sometimes I do, sure I do. And then I have to remind myself, like, hold on a second, what's the end game here? Why are you even doing this? Like, what is the point? And I
Mm.
have to sort of get back to that place of, okay, this is why I do. But my question is this. I think it's a lot, I don't want to say easier, but it seems a little bit less complex for someone who has the depth of experience and knowledge that you do to be willing to make that leap of, oh, okay, let me try this, because you still have an enormous store of experiential data in your being from all
Mm.
your years of ranch work and riding and traditional old school clinic teaching. So now here we are in this, I don't want to call it new, but the next level, okay, the
Mm.
deeper level, the more truly non-mechanical means of communicating with your horse. And I'm going to say honestly, there's probably many of your clients who see this and go, okay, I think I get it, but do I get it? Do I get it? And I am very curious what your opinion is of this. I think part of what blocks people from the do I get it is the act of lack of attachment to what does
Mm.
it mean if I put this effort forward for my horse and I don't receive back what I think I should. And then I have this response of some kind. And it isn't always, let me see how I can rephrase myself to build a better clarity between myself and my horse.
Mm.
So I'm not really sure I'm asking the question the way I want to ask it, but I think what I'm really trying to ask is, what do you see when you're on the road, when you go to these clinics, when you help people? I absolutely love that you share with them the concept of the four planes of energy, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual,
Mm.
and that you also relate it to the natural energy flow of nature, which is everything and everywhere, because everything is all energy, quite frankly.
Mm.
The average horse human relationship often has a bit of bogged down weight on the human side by virtue of the human. We live in duality. We live in duality of thought, duality of emotion, duality of action. We live not necessarily in the moment. We constantly live in our past. We take emotional events from our past, apply them to our present and our future. Like,
Mm.
we don't move through the world like a horse,
Mm.
truthfully. I mean, obviously, there's a difference there. But yet, if one can let go, release, surrender, whatever phrase we want to put to it, it's not giving in or giving up. I view it as a spaciousness, an opening of yourself, your being, your heart to be willing to see something other than what it appears to be with your visual eyeballs in front of you
Yeah.
and to bring it through in another way. Do you find it difficult to convey that concept for the human part of the relationship who maybe don't have a lot of experience with that. Not horse experience, the experience of, can I let go? Can I
Mm.
not be hung up with, what does someone think? Am I good enough? What's the external validation if, my leather's not polished pretty, or my horse's tail is short, or oh, that one knows more than I know, or I don't know, whatever people think. Whatever goes on in these, you've seen it. You've seen it repeatedly when you go to barns.
Oh
It's
yeah.
replete. Yeah.
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 I find that it's a subtle shift, but it's maybe the greatest shift we could feel within our journey in this world. And that is, are we living from the outside in, or are we living from the inside out? And outside in to me is, we are letting life's events, what people say and think about us, our circumstances, how much we have, what we have, uh, money, status, fame, all of these things. Are we letting that determine our feeling inside of us? Or are we flipping that and living from the inside out and letting our internal state of being um, lead the way in our life? And I'd say the former that I spoke about there, the outside in, our experiences and what we get, what we do, what happens to us, what people think of us, all of that, money, fame, all notoriety, that has been strongly leading the way for most people, for all over the earth, for a lot of reasons. I think it's more tied to survival instinct, the self-preservation instinct. And I believe us humans, I believe we're just now coming out of that after millions of years of evolution. I think what we'd call masculine energy has led the way. And we all have masculine energy in us. And we all have a blend of masculine and feminine energy in us. And the masculine, if I was going to think of some words that describes that for me, it would be the doing, achieving, getting, building, acquiring, strengthening, defending, protecting, steadying sort of energy. And if you notice, all of those things are outward focused. They're all in this world focused. They're matter focused. Matter meaning, physical matter, what's happening in this world. And when they go too astray, when that energy gets out of balance, it turns very intimidating, dominating, forcing. So that's what we saw play out in horsemanship. That's what we saw play out in horsemanship for these last almost 6,000 years. And why? Because, very innocently, it was about our survival. If I was in a war, I'm on the front lines riding with my horse, I don't think I'm going to have time to say, hey, buddy, how do you feel about oh, you don't feel good about charging right now? Okay, guys, we're out. We're turning. I wouldn't have time to just ask how they thought. And if I lived out on the frontier with my family all alone in a cabin, I needed a horse that could get me to town to get medicine and food. And if a horse couldn't ride and do that well, I'd have to get a new one. And so that would be the purpose of the horse. And I'm not saying there weren't beautiful relationships out there through the centuries. So there were. You can just feel it. They were all over the place within all of that. And I bet there was millions of horses that did it from a place of connection and friendship. But that's part of that huge shift that's happening now, where the feminine energy is coming into balance for the world and within us. That place of care, of understanding, of compassion, of softness, of connection, of creation, of good communication, of leading from within, of a connection to the heart and to the soul, and all of these things. And so in the clinics, and this conversation could go, wow, a million beautiful ways just based on that, as far as what we're seeing with female energy, the female within, and just the female energy connecting with horses in beautiful ways these days, and really leading the way in a lot of ways these days. And it's just so exciting, and bringing that back into balance. of moving in this world from the inside out, and having all those energies in balance just creates such beauty in the world. And so at the clinics, what we really try to do is first just sit with ourselves and get in touch with ourselves and connect with ourselves, and just simply connect with some of the key things you mentioned there, Miel. The idea of the present moment, that place that is neither in the past nor in the future, but is completely, fully in the present, and just being completely aware, first and foremost, about what we're bringing to it, what we are feeling deeply in our being and in our intention and in our energy. Because a lot of times we think we're in touch with ourselves, but we're not. We're just in touch with what's on the surface. And we could be saying words and we could be doing things and all of these things, but it's totally not super connected to what we are truly feeling inside. We could be saying confident things and acting confident when deeply inside our intention is that we are scared to death and feeling very insecure. And so we wonder why we constantly are getting situations that are showing us that we are insecure and scared. It's because that's our resonance. That's our resonance at that moment. And so I find it's first just about getting in that present moment, and breathing, getting connected, grounding. The word that's commonly used for a lot of this is meditation, which is really just getting in touch with the present moment and being just very aware of where we're at in the present moment, which is a very powerful thing right there, because the past and the future are just these 2 points that we need to have a reference to know where we are at in between them. This is a world of movement, of creation. And to do that, there's going to be within, this, what we call change, constant change, and our ability to create within it. We need to have 2 reference points to kind of know where we are. And within those 2 reference points, it gives us an idea of we were once here and now we're here. So we can get a feeling of what that change is that's happening, which is very important. And so if we get a feel for this, if we can just sit and kind of get a feel of it, and the beauty of it is no 2 ways and no 2 people will ever be the same in how they get there. This beautiful, infinite individuality that we all have, never to be seen again, which is just, we're all artists painting our lives in a beautiful way. And what's really interesting, though, is when we talk about how to get in the present moment and what it feels like, we'll all use the same words. We'll all use the same terminology, which I think brilliantly shows us the proof of the oneness, the universal oneness, the connectedness. And so when we can kind of get just even a glimpse of this, we know what it feels like. And once we know what it feels like, we know how to get ourselves back there. We know what we're aiming for. We know what that bullseye feels like after a while. And that bullseye is addictive.
Yes, it is.
that present moment is the most relaxing place.
Yes.
And you can find it anywhere. And I always try to test that with the idea of, well, what if I was, in prison? What if I was this, that, or there, and from my own experiences and from the experiences of others that have been in some of these deepest, darkest places, I feel that there is a truth, that there is a place within the present moment that is very resting, very freeing, very pure, very innocent. And also, here's the big one, very loving, very loving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from the inside out. It's from the inside out. And so that's what we do a lot of work on in the clinics, is to try and get in touch with that place, and to work on the individual ways that each of us can have the tools to help us get to that place, because it's the only place of true creation. We are creating our lives every moment. And the more we get in touch with that moment, the better we're able to create our lives. And that leads to that second foundational part is, okay, I'm in the moment. I'm here. I feel it. Now I need to know what I'm bringing to the moment. How am I creating? What's my presence truly saying right now? What's my energy truly doing right now? What am I being right now? Because that's what will then be reflected back to you in your experience. That's what life will show you, is what you're creating and what you're being. Life is just being a very innocent little reflection back saying, here's the input that you're given, Chris. Okay, now we're going to show you what that's getting, what that's leading to. We're going to show you where that's going. And it feels very benevolent, very benevolent. And so then you just, take out the word life and put in the word horse. Because the horse is just going to reflect that very beautifully, because they're a being that is very in touch with the moment beautifully. That same thing that we learn so much from the horse, about being in the moment, is the same thing that they're going to be really, really, really clear on, as far as reflecting back to us how we're being. And so within that rationale, a horse that's very scared of you one moment can be completely at peace with you in the next moment. When you get really in touch with your presence and energy from the inside out, that means you're not reliant on the outside in to create it for you. You can just choose to be peace in that next moment. It's work, well, it's a lifetime of work, and we'll never perfect it, because there's no end to the depth. And once you kind of get a feel for it, and you, okay, well, here we go, next lesson. Let's take it deeper, because we don't want life to end. We don't want this experience of living and being to end. And so the great news is that it doesn't. It just takes on many different forms, makes them many different lessons, and there's no end to the depth of it. With that work, I sometimes then will attach it to a lot of exercises as well. So it's important to have the tangible sort of experience of it in this world, the grounded part, the masculine part, the physical application of it. And so once people hopefully have the feel of it when it's happening, like what you talked about, what true harmony is, it's not moving like, oh, look, the horse is doing what we want it to do now when we ask. True harmony, true partnership. No, like you said, it's an inner feeling that can happen anywhere, even when the horse isn't doing what we initially thought that we'd ask them to do. That's often where the true discovery of it is. And so it's something where once they have the roadmap to get there, they can go back and be able to find their own way a little bit better, with the idea of, oh, if you're losing it, just slow down, return back, know what home base feels like, And because one of the big things with home base is that home base is enough. The feeling of this connection is enough. The key is, if you're ever just losing it, and you're working and maybe trying and it doesn't feel like anything's happening, just return back, because it'll always be there, this place. And the horse will recognize it in you. By able to go back and know that place, then you'll be able to find your own way a little bit better, whatever that way might be.
The clinic that you offered that I went to, it was small. There was only, I don't know, 5 of us, maybe, I don't know. But it was really interesting to me to witness the shift in these participants from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, as well as the shift in the horses from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And it's a palpable energy. Like you could actually feel, you could feel the rise and the rising up and the lowering down, or the lessening of the amount of energy, the quality of the energy changed through the day. So it became far more, it was a far more connected feeling by the end of the day. Not just like kumbaya, everybody's all together and here we are, but I mean the quality of the connection. Okay, it felt like a lot more like a super clear Wi-Fi signal than a busted up, like my signal's cutting in and out, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
So it felt through and solid and steady and kind of reliable, with a softness to it that you don't see it a lot, is what I'm going to say. If you kind of travel in the typical circles, you don't see that a lot. You certainly don't see that a lot if you go to places where people choose to compete. That's oftentimes not present. And so the other thing you had a post the other day about duality, and that struck me as I thought about that. I'm like, yeah, because I did all that too. I did the competing and I did the this and I did the that. And God bless my horse. She was like, okay, here we go. We'll do it. Not absolutely willingly, but clearly not loving it. And that was a pure example for me of reevaluating, what am I in this for? What do I do this for? And am I willing to compromise and sacrifice the quality of my connection for what? And I think that piece for many people who have horses is a really interesting question that I ask of myself. And for any of the equestrian listeners out there, I would say ask yourself, so really, truly, at the end of the day, what is it? Like, you ask people, oh, what do you love about horses? Oh, I love their hair. Oh, I love riding. Oh, I love the power they give me. Oh, I love, I don't know, whatever it is. But how many people, if you say, I want you to dig really deep and you tell me what it is about your horse that is the truth, the reason you go to the barn in the morning, the
Mm.
reason you go in sub-zero weather and scrub buckets, the reason you stay up in the night and walk them when they don't feel good, the reason you sleep in the stall because, Fluffy's got a bellyache, whatever the thing is. And I'm curious, like, how many people, I see it shifting now. I definitely see it shifting over the last decade or so. The level to which people are no longer, my horse is a service animal providing me a service. It's far more often, I'm in the connection with this horse because it provides a mirroring or an opportunity, a window for growth, a window for personal growth. So I hate to say it, yeah. Are we still using our horses for a service? Yeah, we are. They're now our therapist. They're now our shrink. They're now our counselor. They're now our BFF, whatever the thing is. Because I can say for me personally, yeah, we all know it's not an inexpensive hobby.
Mm.
Mine certainly don't really work, but it's still probably the best therapy I could possibly ever have spent my dollars on, quite
Mm.
frankly.
Mm.
And so I'm always curious about when I see people with their horses and I think, tell me why you have them. That's really the question that I always want to ask, like, what's in it? Why? And I know if I say that to you, so Chris, why do you hang out? Why do you do the thing with horses still? Because clearly you've kind of gone through it all, backwards through the pucker brush, back and forth across the country, love and loss, pain and happy, rich and poor, like all the things.
Mm.
But the essence of the purity of your purpose driven choices is so clear when I see you video or live when you're with a horse. It's a purity of an energetic exchange
Mm.
that if you could capture it and bottle it, my God, I mean, people would buy it by the bucketful.
Mm.
Because what you share, what you show people from the depth of your being, from the truth of your love for yourself and for horses, it's so pure, it's so clear, it's so apparent that I see what you are out here doing now in the horse world. It's a whole new level of horsemanship that didn't really exist before, but I think now more than ever, with people feeling so separated, truthfully, since we've had, you name it, COVID and this, that, and the next thing, the world has gone through this large, I'm going to call it separation. We humans are not made for separation. We humans are made for connection. I mean, that's
Mm.
really the way we're geared up. We're geared for community, connection, bonding, relationship. That is how we are made. And the events of the world in the last several years have sort of pushed us the other way. And there's this little tiny army of us out here going, let me show you how to walk home to your heart, man. Let me show you what's really possible. Come hang with us, okay? So there's folks out there, passing the message. Like, here I am on the podcast, passing the message. I tell anyone who's willing to listen from the rooftops, we are one. Here's the message. Let me help you. And you do the same through your work with horses, which it's a gift. I mean, you've been given a gift. You didn't know you had this gift until your girlfriend broke up with you at 26.
Yeah.
But thank God she broke up with you at the barn.
Yeah, right.
I mean, had she broken up with you over pizza and beer down the local bar, who knows, right? So, and I'm sure at 26 you're thinking my life couldn't possibly get any worse, and here you are, you're changing lives. I mean, you're literally shifting and changing lives of not just horses, of course, but also of humans. And that's a huge gift. And
Mm.
I'm just I mean, I'm just grateful.
Mm.
Yeah, it's powerful, really powerful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Boy, it's really just love, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
just, and it's the it's something that we use the word love, and that evokes so much within us, but we're really putting a word on something that we really can't put words on. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's all in everything. And in the face of love, you feel the love within yourself, or what will arise is everything that gets in the way of that.
Yeah.
And so that's why with horses it can get real messy. It can get real messy, especially with how us humans, as I described earlier, that I've done a lot, and Rocky had to make his way through it with me, was putting my self-worth and all my self-love on him, and how he responded, how he looked when we did a demonstration, how he performed in a show. And I put my self-love reliant on that, by how people would perceive us and see us and all of that. And that's what horses have had, pretty heavy on them, are the human survival at their expense, and now the humans um, self-worth and self-love, or lack thereof, at their expense.
Mm-hmm.
I find
Truth.
I find they keep showing up, horses. I find that whatever they signed on for, as far as this connection between them and humanity, because there are very few animals within that realm of connection and partnership and relationship the way horses are. Dogs, cats, some birds, really any being can do it, but there is very few that have such a storied history and are so close to humanity as the horse. And I think of our our calling with horses to do these things with them. I mean, why cats and dogs just really have to hang out? They just have to hang out and not get into trouble, and we're cool. But with horses, we have all these grand ideas about what we can do with them, and it really just comes down to one thing: their size. They're big, 1,000 pounds, and their strength. So we can do all these things with them. And there's and that can go really negative in a lot of ways, but there's also an innocence in that. And I really think it's pretty simple. I think it's just like any relationship out there in the world. And if I had a friend, say I had a friend named John, and John just happened to be 1,000 pounds and could run really fast and carry heavy things, if we had a good relationship and we were both enjoying doing things with each other and all of that, at some point I'd have to ask him, wouldn't I? I'd have to say, "Hey, John, can I sit up on your shoulders? Will you carry me around?" Yeah, all right. And can you run really fast? And in fact, I always tell this story. I saw my friend Silas at one of his birthday parties a couple of years back, and his daughter Issa was 4 or 5 years old, and she was like, "Daddy, Daddy, give me a ride." And I was just hanging out with friends at a party, and all of a sudden, Silas picked up Issa and put her on his shoulders and started running around. And she started saying, "Now go left, now go right, now speed up, now stop." And she was having a blast. And here's the thing: he was having a blast. And I was sitting there watching this and going, that's it. It's that simple. It can be that simple. I find horses can enjoy toting us around on their backs, taking us for a ride as much as we do. It's in their eyes. You can feel it booming from their hearts. And what is heart? It's an energy center located right there beside the heart, that I really feel like is the gateway to soul. If we talk about like heart chakric and energy and all that, and yes, horses have that too. And so I think it's really that simple. And I think we can compete, we can go trail riding, we can work on ranches, we can be in dressage, we can do driving. All these things are on the table. It's just not worth it when we break the boundaries of the safety and consent of the relationship to do those things. And and it's also innocent in that, just like all relationships, though, sometimes we want to go see a movie and our partner doesn't want to see the same movie, but they go, you know what, I know you want to go see that movie, so let's go see it. And they go, and it's their choice, and they enjoy it because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
But then it gets out of balance when we keep just going to see the movies we want to see. In the proper balance of a relationship, we then go see what the partner wants to see for a movie. And by
Yeah.
that rationale, some days we ride. What do you want to do today, horse? I just want to sit and eat grass. Okay, well, I'm going to get a book and sit in a chair while you do that. And we'll just enjoy our time together this way. Or maybe the horse wants to go for a walk down the road because they enjoy doing that, seeing new things. So you find what the horse is interested in. And so I find it really just very innocent. Any other relationship out there, we're not always going to enjoy the same things, but part of any good partnership is you want to see your partner happy, and you go do the
Yeah.
things they want to do sometimes. And there's times where I know I'm like, Rocky, let's ride today. And Rock's like, all right, hop on. And he wouldn't have chose to do that, but he was like, sure, let's go for it. Then there was times where I was like, Rocky, let's ride today. And he's like, whoa, well, let me get right up there and stand next to you and grab myself so you can hop right on. And I'm like, ooh, it's on today.
Yeah.
Anything's on the table today. Let's have some fun. Then there was some times where I'm like, Rocky, let's ride today. And he'd give me a side eye and walk away. And I'd be like, okay. Then here's the thing. I have to think what best serves him here. Because in the domesticated world, with an animal that can't really see into the future that well as we can, I have to think what best serves him. If I say, okay, we don't have to ride today, I have to know what his intention is. I have to know where he's coming from. Because if he's coming from the fact like, oh, Chris, we just ridden 3 times and those were hard rides, then I'm going to be like, you know what? You're right. You're right, buddy. Let's take a day off. Then though, he could be saying, well, Chris, I've said, no, I don't want to ride 3 times in a row. So maybe I don't have to ride today too. If I let him go forward with that thought, I'm empowering lack of try. I'm empowering taking the easy way out. I'm empowering a
Yeah.
horse saying, oh, I don't have to do anything if I don't want to. And so just like raising a young student, we'd have to say, choice comes with responsibility. And a young student might not always see how their choices aren't going to empower them in the future. And that's where we have to be like,
Yeah.
we have to sometimes know that an individual can work harder than perhaps they know they can. And that's part of being a really good teacher sometimes. So I find that working with a horse innocently encompasses all of those facets of relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. They're amazing mirrors. And when you were saying, why is it the horse? Why is it the cat or the dog? Well, from an energetic standpoint, I mean, it's clearly a design because their electromagnetic field is massive
Mm,
compared to a human, which is why they're so sensitive, which is why they tune in so well, which is why they reflect so easily, which is
mm.
why they see through your bullshit when you say on the outside, I'm chill and I'm cool. And in the inside, you're, falling apart because you're terrified something's going to go wrong. And you wonder why when you swing the leg over, they're all drawn up and looking at you like, what is wrong with you? Okay. Well, maybe they're giving you the side eye like, what is wrong with you? The cue ought to be, oh, hold on a second, let me figure out what the hell is wrong with me before I say, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
So I think there's a piece in here about discernment and awareness and self responsibility for your part in the partnership
Mm.
and not to dole the whole thing off on, I want to get the ride in or what does Fluffy know or whatever the thing may be. That when you get that mirrored information is to have the awareness that I'm being shown something. What and get curious. Huh, Okay, let me think for a second here. What am I being shown and why? Just like you're saying, the discernment, Rocky says, "Hey, man, I don't feel like riding today." Now the discernment is he BSing me because he said no 4 times and now he's getting into a pattern of, I don't think I have to work, or I don't think I have to play, or I don't think I have to ride? Or is he saying something and I need to discern, like, oh, maybe he does need the day off. Maybe he's had a few hard rides and we're good. And
Mm,
I think sometimes the learning lesson for us in the human land is we need to slow down, to have a little awareness, to make the next discerning choice of how can I reframe how I'm going to present for my horse, so that instead of a one-way deal, it's a two-way deal.
mm. It's
Yeah,
being in that present moment and keeping yourself
being
clean.
present.
You know,
Yeah,
if you're present and you're clean of any stories about how it has to go, and you're not attached to how it has to go for any big worth for yourself, then you're going to be able to see what's
yeah,
happening and what they're thinking more cleanly. And then you'll clean them away.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This has been a really great conversation. Oh my
Mm,
gosh. I
yeah.
mean, this could go on for like hours and hours and hours, but I think this has just been so good. And I would just love to do this again, to see
Sure.
where's the next iteration of Chris Lombard. What's next on the platter? All the things, because it's, if you're into life, you're into love, you're into horses, like, this is the jam right here. How do we
Mm,
walk home to our heart? It's just beautiful. I can't even thank you remotely enough for sharing all this.
mm.
Really
You,
great.
you just said walking home, and Miel, that term came in my head during our talk here twice, where I didn't say it, but in my mind I was like, it's walking home. It's just walking
Yeah,
home. So
yeah,
that famous Ram Dass quote, we're all just walking each other home, and that's what we're doing with our horses
yes.
too.
I
Mm,
think that's the truth. Yeah.
mm.
So beautiful. Cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So
Thank you
tell
for
me
having
before we jump off, what if people want to troll you, find you, lurk after you, connect with you, whatever, where's the best place? How should they do that?
let's see, website. The website's a good representation of me. That just really talk a little bit about how I see horses, how I work with horses, and what the clinics are like, and what my schedule is. And the books are on there, as well as some words from other people. And then social media, Instagram and Facebook. That's where I feel really creative as far as sharing my heart through words. And then there's a couple books out there, Land of the Horses, which is about those 2 years running around out west with horses. It's kind of a young person, or a person's journey of finding their heart, finding their calling
Yeah.
in life. And then The Horses in Our Stars, which encompasses about a 10-year span of the journey within that horses can take us on, that deep journey within of finding our way to our heart and soul. Hmm.
Yeah. Beautiful. This is so fab. So
Yeah.
good. I guess thank you so much for taking the time. Really
Thank you.
great. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Miel,
Yeah.
for creating a platform like this to really speak in a really open-hearted way about all and everything, about all and everything. That's so very important to kind of feel that freedom. And thank you for providing that.
Oh, thanks. I love it. I have a great time doing it. And it's been really just a fun journey, just a lot of fun. Kind of like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.